lost in love.
Nothing but love, 'cause girl,
Let's
I'ma
go.
hold you down.
Ma, it's no problem to hold you, tongue stroke you, please you like I'm supposed to. Touch spots that ain't ever been touched, and I won't stop till both these squirrels get their nuts. Hey, you know it's good when we freakin', king size squeaking after I ease in. If you was with me, baby, 24/7, best believe that every single day would be a sweet day. Girl, you sweeter than a cheesecake. If you want beef, prophecy will be a beefcake. I make love to you till you fall asleep, leave you with sweet dreams between the sheets.
Lady, I want you. Every time I see you, I just wanna kiss you and hold you. Take you to my place, candlelight dinner. Then I start massaging your shoulders.
This is love here, baby.
Every time I see you, I just wanna kiss you and hold you.
You ain't gotta go look.
What's good, everybody? It's man Big Dog coming at you to the TruPlayaz podcast episode. I got my brother from a long time ago. We go back from kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? I finally got him on the show. It's been a long time coming. I got my man Matt, host of the Genuvio podcast, and the Matt. Let me let you finish it because
I'm good. You take the kid out of 11553, but you don't take the 11553 out of the kid.
right.
It's Matthew Miranda. I host the Jacobin Sports Show. You can hear us on Spotify, on Apple, on Twitter at hit us up at Jacobin Sports. Also host the Believe Knicks pod. You go to Believe BLEAV Pod Network. Me and Stacey Patton do a couple episodes a week on the Knicks, and also cover the Knicks at postingandtoasting.com. and the strict.land. So very happy to be here. It's long overdue. I played Little League Baseball with Big Dom back before he was Big Dom. Walnut Street alum. Way back in time. So this feels more like a homecoming than a visit. So I like this. I feel good.
Definitely. Also, if you forgot to mention, we both had more hair back then.
I was telling my daughter the other day, I remember my father taking me to a barber. I remember complaining. I remember saying, like, I hope I go bald. And my dad and the woman were both like horrified. I'm like, I just didn't want to get a haircut that day. And every day now, when I take a look at what's going on up here, I'm like, I actually kept my mouth shut. God was listening to that barbershop.
Oh man, I that's one of my biggest fears is going bald, and now I'm there, but I just keep myself very low. Very low. I don't let it grow anymore. I just keep it very low the best way I can.
That's between you and your hair. Nobody needs to know.
Exactly. But definitely the docket of the show, we're going to be talking about the Knicks big win tonight in Atlanta, the big trade of Cam Reddish joining the New York Knicks. We're going to talk about the Jets end of season and future moves they need to make to improve the team, and we can talk a little bit about the New York Mets. The baseball season's on the lockout right now. And we're going to talk about a little bit with Matthew in regards to that. So definitely, Matt, big win tonight with the Atlanta Hawks. They had the thing that worries me about the New York Knicks is they got to get onto a big lead. They get to a 17, 20-point lead, and then all of a sudden you have to pull out your Rolaids. They make you sweat.
They do. They don't make it easy.
No, they don't make it easy.
I'll say this in their defense. I don't know. This is like there's a stat or a study somewhere about in baseball. There's a thing where a player will make like a great play to end the inning for his team defensively, and then he leads off the next inning and hits like a home run. And like every time highlights, like SportsCenter used to always show highlights and be like, "Hey, how often do you see this guy ends the half inning with a great defensive play?" And the reason that it seems like it happens all the time is because we only notice it when it happens. We don't notice all the times that you end the inning with a great defensive play and you're not even up in the next inning. Like we don't notice that shit. So I'll say this for the Knicks and big leads that shrink a lot. When the Knicks were really good in the 90s, they would get out to big leads. The other team would come back, and the announcers, Marv Albert and John Andres, would always kind of lament the fact that, like, boy, how come the Knicks couldn't just hold the lead? They let him back in the game. They can't do that. That's a bad sign. In the 2000s, the Isaiah era, when the Knicks were terrible, they would often get blown out and then make these fake comebacks and then lose. And they would get all this credit. Oh, my God. Like, they fell behind, but they made a run. They just couldn't close it out. I don't know why we seem to be more bothered I think there's more at stake. Like a good team or a decent team has something at stake. So when we see a game like tonight, the Knicks are up, I think, 17 in the second half, and you know it's coming, and it does come, and then the Hawks are within 3, and you don't feel good. And I think it feels better if you're the team down 17 who pulls back to within 3, but like end of the day, it's a results business. And basketball is a game of runs, and the Knicks made enough of them that they never fell behind. I think that was huge for them. They what's the expression? They bent, but they didn't break.
Right. Definitely. I definitely understand that. Plus, we got to keep on one thing. Kemba's still not playing. He's still injured. Derrick Rose is out with the ankle surgery. And but the team is playing.
Was out tonight too.
Yeah, Noel was out tonight as well. The beautiful thing is, I mentioned in my previous podcast, Matt, the rise of RjBarrett. You know what I'm saying? He's rising. And this is we finally had a lottery pick that's actually playing to his draft status.
Yeah.
Look back on it now. The top 2 rookies from that draft is Ja Morant and RjBarrett. And that was
you're putting RJ ahead of Zion now.
You know, you got to be available.
That's true. That's very true.
You know?
Are you saying if today the Pelicans offered you straight up Zion for Barrett that you would not do it?
I would not do it.
You would not do it
I would not do it.
I mean, RJ is durable as hell. Is it mostly for that? Or are you saying because his ability to be available makes more of a contribution? Like RJ's steady is better than Zion's, up and down?
I think the state of the Knicks right now is you need that guard. We've been waiting for a big-time guard for so many years.
Yeah, it's true.
We bought Allen Houston. You know what I'm saying? We traded for Latrell Sprewell and put him out of position.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, he did.
It's finally this time for us to actually have a 2 guard. That's a 2 guard. But RjBarrett can play the 3.
Yeah, but you want him at the 2.
Yeah.
Because he's so strong there. He's such a big, strong guy that if you can put him, he can survive as a 3, but I think he can flourish as a 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, I've written about it in the last couple of recaps. The first 133 games of his career, he scored 30 or more once. And then he just did it like 3 times in 10 days. And there's a 26 in that one. Tonight he had 20, maybe 24, something like that. And it's not just that he's scoring because, I don't know how good a shooter Barrett will ever be. He was hot as hell last year for a while, but like a lot of things were weird last year. But what I'm really encouraged by is that he's not scoring these points because he's on some unsustainable hot streak from outside. He's taking the shots he wants. He's not taking what the defense gives him. He's driving. He's getting out in transition. He's finishing offhand, left hand. You see him hitting some fadeaways. And what Jason Kidd was like this in a different sense. Jason Kidd was a terrible shooter the first 46 minutes of the game. But the last 2 minutes of any game, if Jason Kidd was taking a 3 against you, you were worried because he was a clutch shooter. Barrett is kind of like, the first half, definitely the first 3 quarters. A lot of games he's quiet. But at this point, if there's 2 minutes left in the game and RjBarrett is taking a 3 and his form looks good, I feel about as good as I do anyone else on the team. Even though quarters 1 through 3, he's not a great shooter, but he just has that factor. And like you're saying, you can draft Kevin Knox. We'll talk about the Knox trade. You draft a guy like Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox is bigger than Barrett. He's a better shooter. He's probably more athletic. But whatever that, I don't want to say it's hard because I'm not calling out Kevin Knox at all for anything. But there's something that some players have that even other players recognize is unusual. And for Barrett, he's not the biggest. He's not the most athletic. He's not the best shooter. But if you were at the Y, RjBarrett, whatever team he's on, that team would always be on for the next game. And he would be a big part of it. He's a basketball player. Knicks don't have a lot of those. No. And back in the day when you had DeBusschere and Bradley and Frazier, like they had basketball players. I'll take as many of those guys as I can get. And RJ is more than Zion. I will agree with you. Zion more talented, unquestionably. If you could guarantee me 80 games from each, I'll take Zion.
Yeah,
but you can't.
No.
and RJ is as close, at least just in terms of like another thing. You brought up Allen Houston. I love Allen Houston, always will. Thank you for the Miami shot. But if Allen Houston wasn't scoring, he wasn't doing anything else.
That's true.
RJ Barrett, and it was funny is that in people's minds, in memories, you think of Spreewell as just like, he got a lot of heat for making that comment in his career about how he has to feed his family, and I think people took it the wrong way and made him look like a jackass. Yeah. Spreewell had the reputation always as being more of a selfish player, more of a difficult, Spreewell, like you said, played out of position, undersized for years, was almost always like second on the team in assists. Spreewell was not a selfish player by any stretch, and if he wasn't shooting well, he would still contribute. I think Barrett is similar in the sense that like he has stepped up and replaced Reggie Bullock as whoever the best perimeter player is. I got him.
Yep.
And he often handles them. We've seen him against DeRozan, against some other guys.
Tatum.
So, Tatum, right? Tatum. So he defends, he rebounds, and when he's also shooting well, he's a difference maker. Is the Barrett that you're seeing now the one? Is this what you were hoping for? Is this what you thought you would see from him? Do you think there's more of a ceiling that he hasn't scratched yet?
I think he has. We have not seen the finished product of RJ Barrett. I think the jump shot can be much better. His free throw shooting could be a whole lot better. But the one thing he does very well is he gets to the back end. He drives to the basket. And when he's in the fourth quarter, what makes him so good in the fourth quarter, he drives to the basket, kicks out to open teammates. He's not Randle who will stop the ball because he wants to be the hero. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen it was a fourth quarter in Toronto. Which game they went overtime? I think was it Toronto or was the game before that they were losing? Barrett brings them back, and the way he brought him back was he drove to the basket, kicked it out to an open teammate. Open teammate hits a tied 3-pointer. The game was tied, and I was like, wow, that's how you make your teammates better. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't make your teammates better, you're just a good player. And we're seeing that with Randle. Randle has the ability to make his teammates better. He passes the ball very well, but he's too emotional, and he stops the ball. He has some Carmelo Anthony tendencies.
So let me ask you a question about this, because this was something. So last year, a lot of people had a lot of issues with Elfrid Payton. As the point guard. And Elfrid Payton, let's be real, Elfrid Payton is the worst shooter as a guard that I've ever seen in my life. Not just jumpers. Like Elfrid Payton would miss an open layup and have the ball spin away, like in a way that defies physics. Like what Steph Curry is to great shooting, Elfrid Payton is to bad shooting. So let's be real about that. But there was a lot of questions during the year that people had about, like, why does Thibodeau keep playing this guy? Like, how do you have Tom Thibodeau, who on the one hand seems obsessed with winning every single possession, and then be like, but why? But he's letting Elfrid Payton play. Like, why is Elfrid Payton keep playing? And one thing that I think hurt Payton, and I think this is a thing that athletes suffer from, and fans and certainly media don't, I think, give it enough credit. Tom Thibodeau likes to have point guards who are aggressive offensively. He has in Chicago, he did in Minnesota. He's always had that. So Elfrid Payton, if you look at his career numbers, like Elfrid Payton's not stupid. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. Whatever you want to say about him, he wasn't a stupid player.
Right.
Elfrid Payton's shot attempts per game last year were an anomaly for his career. They were much higher than they've ever been. There's only one way that's happening. In a season where Randle ascends to All-NBA second team, and Barrett takes the leap that he does, and Quickly is there, and Rose is there. The only way that Elfrid Payton is taking more shots is because the coach is telling him, in this system, I need you taking those shots. I don't need you making those shots. Like you see a lot with Mitchell Robinson. Sometimes you don't need to make the shot, just get it up. And like Mitch will do something. But like you can tell, Thibodeau told Payton, I want you in this role, even though you are not succeeding in it in anyone's eye. I need you to do it. And Payton got abused for it all year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know with Randle. I don't. I agree with you that I really wish Randle, and he's still. Maybe there's time for this. Like, I wish he would tone down the emotional stuff. I think if you're going to be a leader, and maybe that's not a fair role, maybe that's not his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's too many times where, especially, you'll see his reaction to a teammate,
Mm-hmm.
or he's like Kurt Thomas with the officials, like every single.
Yeah, every time.
So okay, like I wish the emotional stuff I wish he would work on, but as far as his game and his selfishness and the ball stopping, I feel like maybe I cut Randle a break because I think he's being asked to do something that's not really his best role. Julius Randle should not be the center of your offense.
Right.
Julius Randle should be the second best player, on your offense. And if that's the case, or third, so let's say I've got an actual playmaking point guard, and I've got, let's just say Tatum, because you mentioned Tatum before.
Mm-hmm.
If I have Jason Tatum and Dame Lillard playing with Randle, Randle's not stopping the ball.
No.
In that kind of an offense, Randle gets to play more like Draymond Green, where he's attacking 4-on-3s off of closeouts and doubles on picks. And Randle is a great passer, period. If Randle's getting to just play 4-on-3, he's going to shoot less. His assists are going to go up. His turnovers are going to go down. So I hear everything you're saying about Randle, especially, like, I hear you. But I'm willing to give him I'm willing to wait still on the selfishness. And you're right. He does stop the ball, and there's times you'll see him go, like, insisting on taking a technical when, like, Quickly is out there, and then he misses it, and you're like, come on. So, let me ask you this. How surprised were you by Randle's play last year, and how surprised are you by it this year?
I didn't think he was that good of a player. I just thought he was a good player on the cusp, but never to the point that you could say he was an MVP candidate. Never to the point he was on any second NBA all NBA team. None of that stuff.
Okay.
And I just believe that sometimes I think he was playing for the contract last year. Plus, he had a lesser team last year, so he was able to get away with doing what he was doing with the ball.
Yeah.
When you add Fournier, you add Kemba Walker, you bring in two other guys who need the ball. In my opinion, it would have been easier for him to score more points this year because those guys would have opened up everything for him to get easier shots. But yeah, you still see him bring the ball up court. You still see him do the same thing he did last year. Last year he got away with it. This year he can't, because you got talent around you now. You got guys who could really do their thing. I feel bad for Kemba. For me, was a good pickup.
Yeah.
Fournier.
Has he won you over at all the last maybe couple of weeks with the way he's been playing? He's shooting better. He's scoring a bit more.
Scoring better. But you know what? That's all set up for him to be traded. You didn't get Reddish to sit on the bench to be a 10th man.
So let's talk about Reddish a little bit. First of all, how do you feel about the move?
I was shocked they got him for that cheap.
Right? I was shocked. I heard his name linked with them, but I thought it was just like, you hear the Knicks linked to a lot of people. I didn't see it happening. I didn't think the Hawks especially would give Reddish
to the Knicks.
Away to the Knicks. And when I heard, it's a protected first that is not a good, it's always going to be pretty highly protected. And Charlotte's not bad. Like, that pick might convey this year and it'll be like number 20, which is not a big, I'll take Cam Reddish over whoever you get 20th in the draft this year.
True.
But also, what I really like about the deal, putting aside for a second, actually Reddish is a player. In terms of strengthening just your talent and your asset base to other teams, I've seen a lot of trade rumors this year where the Knicks are interested in somebody and Kevin Knox is a part of the deal, and nobody cares about Kevin. Like, again, I'm not demeaning the man, but as a player, no team cares about Kevin Knox.
Right.
Now, when you make those same trade proposals, they could trade Cam Reddish. And just as far as, so there was a lot of talk about Jeremy Grant. And I don't think I would make that move, but just to say, like, initially people were saying, like, okay, you got to trade them. They need a big, they need a young player, they need a pick. So I give them Noel, I give him Obi. Okay, but now maybe I got Cam Reddish. You may not be as high on him as you are on Obi, but some people would be. Cam Reddish plays a more important position. He's far better defensively. I like Obi, but like you could certainly argue I'd rather have Cam Reddish right now than Obi Toppin, which means when you're talking trades, if I can tell a team I have a 21-year-old with high upside on the defensive end and potentially as a wing who shoots almost 40% from three, and he's 20, he's still under contract for a year and a half. Like, so now forgetting everything else about how Reddish is fit on the team is better because you've replaced a person that you had no plans for.
Yeah.
With someone that you have high hopes for, and it cost you really nothing. You could talk about the on the court fit, but I just think as far as like making these moves, like you see it every draft day with Leon Rose, he starts making these trades, and I always get pissed at first. Like I'm like, because I just want, if you got the 20th pick, my brain is very simple. Like I don't want 24, 20 is better. Like, but both drafts, they made all these moves, and I'm like, I don't know, what are they doing? I don't even understand what's going on. The night comes to an end, and you look back, and then you're like, oh shit, okay. Like, I'll give you. Talk about what you think of Reddish on the court. I'm just gonna find you a tweet that relates to this thing about the Knicks and draft value. But what do you think? So do you think Reddish is gonna step in to the rotation? Because like it sounds to me like you might replace. Would you replace Fournier with Reddish?
I would replace Fournier with Reddish because of defensive prowess.
Okay.
The wingspan, the 7'1" wingspan. I noticed in the first game of the season, the difference between having Bullock at the 3 and having Fournier at the 3 was two different things on the defensive side of the ball. We both understand Tom Thibodeau is a defensive coach. He's going to go for defense first. So he's going to be a great addition to the team, but he could also be, like you said, could be trade bait. But what do you trade him for? He's in another trade that before I even go to that of this other spectrum, another trade, possible trade. Who you trade him for? That's going to bring this team to the top. You got Damian Lillard still available. Is that going to be a precursor to bringing Lillard into the Knicks?
This shit always sounds. Sometimes this shit sounds crazy. I don't want Lillard on the Knicks, and the reason I don't want Lillard on the Knicks is not anything because of Dame. It's just because I don't think there's any way to get his timeline to fit with theirs. Okay. You know, if Dame was 27, do it because I'm fine. I got his whole prime. I'm going to run for it, but he's probably going to have abdominal surgery now. He might be out. A while, maybe the rest of the season, I believe. And that's not a place, core injuries on aging players.
Not good.
Not a good thing. And the money he's going to make, like you are not paying Damian Lillard for what he's going to do. You are paying him for what he's already done. Because you're not getting, like, does he deserve the money for what he did before? He deserves more. But is Damian Lillard next year going to be worth $50 million? Probably not. And even if he is, we talked earlier off air. Carmelo Anthony in 2014, 2 years. Carmelo Anthony in 2013 finishes third in MVP. Carmelo Anthony, and he at that point is, I believe, 2013, 18, 4, 9, like 27, 28. He's in his prime. The next year, 2014, he has an even better year. But they made the Bargnani trade. Chandler got injured. They were lousy. They missed the playoffs. And then Phil Jackson tore everything down. Point being, like, even if you get Dame, and even if Dame gives you, like, Chris Paul, like 2 incredible MVP level seasons, you still need so many other things around him to work. And I think the Knicks' strength right now is they have a lot of nice young players. Like good, even Randall's 26, I think. They're all young. They're good. Everyone's on a good contract. Nobody's on a bad contract. Even Randall's on a good. Whatever you think of him, like Randall's not. The Knicks have had a lot of untradeable contracts over the years. Randall's not.
Yeah.
Randall's not. This isn't Stoudemire. This isn't. Like this isn't broken down stat with a max deal. Randall's on a good deal. So I feel like I can't go after Dame just because I'm blowing up everything to make a 1 or 2 year run with Damian Lillard, and then I'm starting over. Let me ask you this: you followed this team a long time. Not a lot, fewer and fewer Knicks fans have ever seen the team win a title. Would you right now trade the whole youth base that you have if it'll win you a title in the next 3 years?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Reason being is this is the issue, and you and I both been spoiled of 15 years of Patrick Ewing.
Yes, that's right.
And granted, did the front office help him out? No. They traded away his best point guard to get then we had the Charles Smith Memorial.
Traded Rod Strickland for Maurice Cheeks.
Yeah. You had Mark Jackson and Rod Strickland to get the ball to Patrick. All you needed, really, was that big, small forward.
And they had X-Men.
And
they could have kept him. And they got cute. They tried to go after Harvey Grant. Next thing you know, X is a Celtic, and Charles Smith is miscast as a small forward.
Exactly. We were gifted with Ewing all the years at the Knicks, guaranteed second round playoffs, guaranteed.
Yep.
You traded Ewing you traded away Ewing to get Glenn Rice, where Glenn Rice would have been that the 3 forward to be with Ewing. I'm just used to. I don't want just 1 or 2 years of playoffs so that we back to mediocrity. I want 10 to 12 years of playoff basketball, second round or better.
Because the other thing that happens that people forget, because the Knicks have been so bad for so long, the Knicks are not Miami or the Lakers in terms of top free agent. They're not a destination on that level. But when New York is good, they can draw anybody.
Yeah.
So it's not just like 1 or 2 years and then start over, because then starting over means you got to hit in the draft, which is totally a crapshoot. You got to hope a star becomes available who wants to come to you for some reason. So the idea of the Knicks, they have so many extra draft picks. They don't have a single bad contract. They don't have, it's still a team that you can really shape in a lot of ways. Like you could get a bigger top star. You could get a top star, and they could fit with Randall probably pretty easily. Almost no matter other than Zion, because Zion is basically the same. But like if you got Dame, you could play him with Randall. If you got Miles Turner, he's going to fit very easily right next to Randall. I feel like you. I feel like it's important for New York to be good for a while, not only because you want to be good, but because it creates the kind of momentum that makes the Knicks a go-to place for good players. And that's what you want to keep going.
That's what I want to keep going, definitely. Now, you mentioned Miles Turner. This dynamic is, I'm kind of torn between it, because you get Miles Turner, Mitch Robinson would have to go.
Yeah.
I'm torn with that, because one, you get a better all-around player in Miles Turner. But with Mitch Robinson, you still got untapped potential.
So I have had a recent conversion about this issue. I have always felt I will take Miles Turner over Mitchell Robinson because he has. I mean, he's a respectable 3-point shooter at a good volume, and like Mitch cannot take a shot outside the paint. So not just in terms of like scoring or numbers, but imagining what the offense can look like when you have a center that demands, the other big man is out there on him. I mean, for Barrett alone, I can't imagine what the lane would look like playing one center. So I've always felt like, and he's a elite shot blocker. Like Mitch is not a better shot blocker than Miles Turner. Like
No.
Miles Turner is so I've always felt I would take Miles, but now I would not, because the big difference between there's two things that I think Mitch has really now stayed out of foul trouble for a couple of years, which was his big problem early on. There's two things about Mitch that don't exist with Miles Turner, and I want them both. And it comes from a number of games, I would say, in the last month where Mitchell Robinson has been the best player on the floor for either team. Like, forget the numbers. Just if you just watch the game, he controlled it. And there's not a lot of players who can control the game and not be able to score for themselves, but he can do it. Two things about Mitch. One, Mitchell Robinson creates 8 to 10 points a game just on running the rim. Not on dunks like everyone sees this year. Like, where are the lobs? Like, we're not seeing the lobs. Well, once he got his conditioning back, you're starting to see the lobs more. But also, and this went back even to when you had guys like Franklin Lakina and Emmanuel Mudiay who couldn't shoot. The threat of Mitch on the lob is so lethal that literally teams sometimes will keep both players back toward Mitch and basically see if the guard misses the layup, because that they think that's a better bet than coming off of Mitch. So even though he doesn't score a lot of points, and even though you don't think of him as a spacer because he's not horizontally, but if you think of the basketball as a three-dimensional space, Mitch is spacing it vertically much more than Miles Turner does. So I think that's one thing that, particularly on a team that has now, for the first time in a long time, the Knicks have a lot of good guards. Like Derrick Rose, Kemba Walker, Quickly, Grimes, even overseas, Rokus McBride in the Spanish league. Rokus Jokovitis, who's going to come over next year. He's a left-handed point guard. He's bigger than the guys they have now. Very crafty. He's doing really, really well in the second best league in the world. They have a lot of guards. So I feel like I want a center off my bench who can shoot, because I want that dimension sometimes. But Mitch's ability to control space so that even mediocre guards are getting 4 or 5 baskets a game. I want that. And also, and this is the biggest difference, I think, and I've really noticed it the last couple of weeks, Miles Turner is not a good rebounder, has never been a good rebounder. Mitchell Robinson lately is starting to do a lot of like Charles Oakley rebound, like 15, 16, 19. And rebounds were like he's becoming a guy that you notice getting rebounds. Like, not a lot of guys have that production and just that. Like, he looks like a stud getting rebounds. So I like Miles Turner a lot. I'm not going to be sad, if I think it's a good deal in general. If it was the same Miles Turner and some larger deal, okay. But I've been very hesitant about Mitch because he's on he's just like his 6th agent, and Mitch he can be a little whatever. But I gotta say, and it's a contract year, but last year before he got hurt, he was playing like this. And this year, as soon as his conditioning kicked in, you're seeing Mitchell Robinson like you saw before. And this is the guy that, they meet the Hawks again in the playoffs. You throw last year away because Mitchell Robinson is not Taj Gibson, and Mitchell Robinson is not Nerlens Noel. Like, he's another level. He's Clint Capella's level. So what about you? Like, do you feel like, let me ask you that. Let me give you three names, and you tell me, of the 3 of them you want on the Knicks going into next season: Mitchell Robinson, Miles Turner, or Jeremy Grant?
I want Mitchell because he was a difference of that playoff series against Atlanta. He was a difference. Granted, he's not the great, or he's not gifted offensively, but his presence on the court, the presence in the paint, the presence on the backboard, you can't find that. You can't find that. You can't replace that. This is not 90s basketball anymore. Having guys like that now in this age of basketball is something that you have to cherish, appreciate, and it's also an anomaly. You got big guys want to be guards, shoot 3-pointers all day long. He's going to be the paint grab and clean up the glass.
Mm-hmm. And I think this matters when you talk about, changing a culture. Sometimes means you see the results of a culture change in players who will come to your team that didn't used to come. The Knicks have this a lot. A couple of years ago, players who were in the draft from Kentucky would not work out for the Knicks because the Knicks rep was so low. So another thing to think about is like Mitchell Robinson has been a vastly underpaid player his entire career with the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Give him a fair deal and show him and your young players and the rest of the league that the Knicks are a team that can understand and appreciate development and growth and time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, let's see how the whole year plays out with Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy I've seen the last month or so, like give him a fair contract and bring his ass back and be glad that he's there.
And pray he doesn't get injured. That's the thing.
That's why, let's see how the rest of the year goes.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
He had a foot injury last year, and you don't like that. But he's not the classic, he's not the size of a Yao Ming or Sam Bowie, or like he's not that big.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinner, but like, you don't want any. Every time Mitch, he got cut in the game tonight in the first quarter, and when the Knicks team, I guess it was probably the physician, came over and applied something to his skin, Mitch was like he looked like a little kid, like he was like, ooh, like he didn't like it, and like, and anytime Mitch shows any pain, I'm like, oh, I feel like Sanford, like I'm worried that I'm about to drop because he is not the best player, but he is, I would say, maybe right after Randle, and maybe you could argue to me, even with Randle, like the most irreplaceable.
Yeah. So this is what I mentioned to you. I don't think I mentioned to you. I did speak. I had it in my mind. I think we had to read this week or back channel. The possibility of the New York Blue Devils.
The New York Blue Devils. So I did a Twitter poll of this actually yesterday. I asked people if they'd rather, Knick fans, would you rather have Zion or would you rather have Julius Randle? And it was probably about 70% Zion. Now I think I'm not surprised because I think in a vacuum, most people would pick Zion Williamson over Julius Randle. But again, the question with Zion to this point has been availability or unavailability in his case. I think we probably feel the same way about how some of that unavailability might change were he to be a New York Knick and not a New Orleans Pelican. But Randle is very durable. Randle plays heavy minutes. Randle, he's been there and he's done it to the extent that Zion has not.
Right.
You got a choice between building around Randle, Barrett, and player X, or Zion, Barrett, and player X. Who are you going to go with?
I don't know, Matt. On that one, I'm going to roll the dice with Zion. Reason being,
Zion. Go ahead.
Reason being is the emotional aspect of the two players. When Zion's on the court, he don't care about the officials. He don't care about the calls. He just wants to win. And he won't show up his teammates the way Randle sometimes shows up his teammates. And that's a very big thing for me as a player, especially in New York. You got to be thick-skinned in New York because you could have 10 big games in a row. You miss that last second shot one time, you're going to get booed. How are you going to rise above that after that?
I'm going to give you a Mets analogy that I think is at play here. If you remember, in 1997, Bobby Valentine had taken over for Dallas Green, I think, and Mets had their first good year in a long time. And it was the first year of the wild card's existence, I think, or first or second year. And the Mets were in it late in the year. Like they weren't like that close, but like they kind of were, like they were in contention. And Todd Hundley, yeah, 98. Thank you, 98. Todd Hundley was having a big year, and late in the season, he had something wrong with his like elbow, and if they were out of it, he would have just called it a season and had like this surgery. But he was like, I think he had just set the franchise record for home runs in a season, or home runs. I think he had set the record for, like, he was like having a huge year. And he decided to play and to help them try to win a wild card, and they came up short. But like everyone loves Todd Hundley. Like he had this great season, and like he went down like a champ. Like everyone loves him. Early in the next season, the Mets trade for Mike Piazza. Todd Hundley is still out recovering. The Mets tell Todd Hundley, you know what? Thank you for your service. Here's an outfielder's mitt. You're going to go learn left field in real time because you're not Mike Piazza.
Right.
Now, you might argue, like, you could make the argument that, like, that's not fair to Todd Hundley. Like, he lost his job because of an injury that he sustained because you wanted him to, and he agreed to do it. Like, you know, nobody told Todd Hundley stop. The Mets were very happy, you know, to have him, and it didn't work out for him. It really did not work out for him at all. He loses his job. But, and we can all talk loyalty and all talk whatever shit, but like everybody's like, Mike Piazza, Todd who? So I feel like Julius Randle is a very good player. And in Knicks history, like what he did last season, like led the team in points, rebounds, and assists. No one's ever done that before. All NBA second team, most improved player. Like one of the most shocking positive seasons I have seen in 30-something years watching this team. Like never saw it coming. Very grateful, and I feel like he deserves credit similar to Amari in 2011 for being someone who came here voluntarily and took on the challenge and got the Knicks from you're a joke to okay, we see you. Zion Williamson, like Mike Piazza has an energy. Every time Mike Piazza is at the plate, whatever you are doing, you look away from because Mike Piazza's the plate. Todd Hundley's not doing that. Great player, not doing that. Julius Randle's a great player. The energy that exists when Zion Williamson is out there, just when you talked before about Randle and energy, and like Randle, there's a lot of ways to uplift a team. So I don't know how he is in practice or whatever, but like Randle's energy, right? His body energy on the court, his body language, and his energy does not seem uplifting. Right? It doesn't seem to me like I don't imagine myself looking at Randle and feeling like better about myself or whatever. Zion has like the energy literally of like a star. Like when he takes warm-ups, every eye in the building is watching him take warm-ups. You said he's not worried about the rest. He literally looks like a player from a better league who for some reason, like, I don't know, they're closed. So he came down to play with NBA players. Like he just looks like whatever the next level of basketball is, that's where he belongs. Like Bo Jackson. So I love Julius Randle. I tend to defend him more than, and I've loved him since Kentucky. Like I just have always liked his game a lot. He's a guy that I always hoped would end up on the Knicks. I used to always hope he would play alongside Porzingis. I think they would have been a good, young Porzingis, but whatever. But injuries aside, for the moment, certainly Zion is another level.
Mm-hmm.
But injuries are a reality. How much do you need to see, or do you need to see anything more from Zion Williamson? That, like, if the Pelicans called you tomorrow and said, "Okay, we're willing to talk a Zion trade," are you doing it right now and willing to pay like a good price for him, or do you need to see more from him just playing on the court to feel like he's worthy of you committing to that kind of a move?
That's a good question to ask. And right now, I would not make the trade. Right now, I need to see. I need to see him on the court. I need him to not, be a biscuit away from 300 pounds or 350. You know what I'm saying? I need him at max weight 275. I think that's his weight. It contributes to his injuries also. Get him a nice nutritionist. Make him learn that. And of course, I know he works out, but maybe do more instead of just lifting more weights. Take out the extra off. Be a little bit thinner. He has the talent. He has the strength. You don't need that bulk.
Yeah. If you remember what young Shaq looked like when Shaq first came into the league, he was humongous, but he was defined. He was so he looked like Superman. And if Zion cut it down and trimmed it up, like, he would have that look.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's nice to think about.
Nice to think about. And we got and one thing I've heard he's hinted that his dream was to be in the Garden. And I remember his look on his face when he was chosen first, how his face just dropped.
He says it's his favorite arena to play in.
Yeah.
I believe he has even said that he dreamed about playing for the Knicks. I think he said that while he was with the Pelicans. Maybe he didn't say Knicks. Maybe the Garden was as far as he went. But, like, he had a big smile when he said it. Like, I mean, he did everything other than, like, take the ring off, like, right in front of,
Now did he say it was a dream to play for the Knicks or the Garden? It was a dream to play with his college teammate RjBarrett.
And now Cam is there.
Don't think it's missing. I mean, hey, you might as well just bring Krzyzewski on the coaching staff. Hey.
If that's what it takes. Now, let me ask you this, though.
Yeah.
The Pelicans are familiar with trading stars that everybody knows where they want to go and getting a good price. The Pelicans held out on the Lakers for Anthony Davis for a while. And the package they got was a good package. If the Pelicans tell you, okay, like let's say you see Zion, he's 275, he's all NBA, but he wants to leave. Pelicans tell you, and he says, you trade for me, I'll sign an extension right away. Okay, Pelicans tell you, we want, so for salary purposes, we'll take Randle, obviously. We also want quickly. We want Mitchell Robinson. We want 3 first-round picks. And we want Miles McBride or Obi Toppin.
I'm countering that trade. This is what I would give them.
Okay.
I would give them Julius Randle, Obi Toppin, McBride, and 1 first-round pick unprotected. Let's see what they tell me.
Okay, they say quickly has to be part of the deal.
You're giving too much now. You're giving too much.
Oh, they say this. They say quickly or Mitchell Robinson. We have to have one of them.
I'll give quickly. I want Mitch there.
All right. Now let's say they say, you know what? Actually, we changed our minds. You keep IQ, but we got to have Mitch. That's the deal.
I would do it. I would do it.
Wow.
I would do it. I would roll the dice and just do it.
Now, how much
Begrudgingly, I would do it, but it won't be. It's not a slam dunk.
how much healthy Zion do you have to see before you make that deal? Is it a full season? Could it be less? Would it have to be more?
If he could give me 75 games minimum.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be 70. If you want that package, he has to give me at least 75 games minimum. I may even raise the stake up too. He has to give me close to 80.
Okay.
I'll have to raise the ante up. But I'm not doing that unless he can show me he can do that. I understand it would be my dream to have Zion on the Knicks,
Right.
but I have to be really realistic as well.
Now, here's the good news.
Mm-hmm.
Zion Williamson is under contract one more season next year.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, when you think about it, the Pelicans do not have a lot of time. I'm very curious about the Pelicans don't have a lot of time really to make a deal because he's got a year left. So at this point, like you can trade him and a team will say, great, we get a year and we kick an extension off of it and beautiful. But like once next season starts ticking, like that value goes down. Like you're going to get less and less in the shit.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how soon they would be willing to make a move because they're actually right now without him. They've been playing much better the last couple of weeks. Brandon Ingram is looking really good. They have a lot of other nice, like young players. And if you added to that bunch, let's just say like Mitchell Robinson and Obi Toppin and Quickly, and I mean that would be a nice team.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to be. I mean, I feel more than usual like that's going to happen. Like he's going to go like them becoming like a legitimate franchise right at the same time, and everybody knows how badly he wanted to be there, even when like nothing was happening, and now something is happening. And like the Pelicans just keep fucking up everything with like it's almost like a movie. That's something to think about.
So now, Matt, we it's great to talk about basketball. We got to segue to the New York Jets.
New York Jets.
With the honorable mention, let's talk about the Giants for a small moment. And I mentioned the previous podcast that I had with JoeyG and Kyle, how Gettleman messed up with that draft with Daniel Jones. He didn't get the linebacker early in the draft. He reached for Daniel Jones. That was the beginning and the end of Gettleman from that draft. And the fact that, plus the choice of coaches in Joe Judge, because he was recommended by Bill Belichick, that came up and bit him in the ass too. He retired, quote unquote retired.
Yeah.
But all intents and purposes, he was dismissed. But you signed Galladay, you Shepard, was it Sterling Shepard is still there. Evan Ingram is out. Butterfingers Ingram is out. He's gone. You're not gonna keep him. The defense looks okay, but it could be much better. Bradbury had a down year because I think losing his quarter got messed up with his mind. So when you lose that much, it gets to your mind. Two questions before we segue to the Jets. Do they continue with Daniel Jones? And do they keep Saquon Barkley for the future?
I mean, the answer to both is probably what does the next GM think? And I think that raises a big question of, the Giants are interviewing, I think I saw it's 9 candidates, and all of them are people outside the Giants, which is like really, really rare. The Giants are a very keep it in the family kind of business, but the family has not been looking good of late. So I suspect that if the Giants' next head coach is, a college coach or a young coordinator, that they'll probably keep Daniel Jones for a year, because I think a coach like that might be more interested in just coming in and getting their system and their culture in place. No one's going to hold it against them if Daniel Jones stinks for a year. And then, you get a good pick and you get a quarterback and you go. I think if the Giants bring in an established head coach, somebody like a Tom Thibodeau, who they're there to win. They're not there to slowly hold your hand. Like, they want to win. In that case, then I think there's a greater chance that you see the Giants making moves for maybe someone like Russell Wilson. And then, and now, there's a huge range between if the Giants bring in, I don't know, whatever head coach you think is good right now, whoever's going to be available that we can't think of right now. The Giants hire that guy, and Russell Wilson comes to New York, and they're ready to turn it around right now. Now maybe I keep Saquon Barkley, because maybe I think with a real legit quarterback and team around him, that guy could take off. But if I'm thinking I want to bring in a young guy and give him a couple of years to do it his way, and so I really don't care the first year what happens with if Daniel Jones happens to blow up under a new coach, great. And if he doesn't, that coach will pick their quarterback. I have no idea what usually with the Giants, more than other teams, certainly more than the Jets, I feel like you can have an expectation of the direction they're probably going to go in. This is a rare time where I have no idea where the Giants are going next. And with the news that the candidate base is not in-house, they have a little bit of an incestuous New England Belichick thing. So we'll see if that kicks in, but they've done that before too. I'm very curious to see where they go. Do you think Daniel Jones deserves a year with maybe a better head coach than Joe Judge? What's your feeling about Joe Judge? Do you think this was not fair to him, or that he's just kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Or do you think Joe Judge is unquestionably worthy of being dismissed?
Joe Judge, after my assessment of 2 years of him being a head coach, I believe he was overmatched. I believe Joe Judge, 2-year assessment, he was overmatched as a head coach for the New York market.
So you think the market needs to be considered when the Giants, whatever direction they go in, you think that's something that they should probably think about? Because when I think of their last couple of coaches, I don't think of any of them as being especially media savvy. And it doesn't help. Joe Judge was kind of an extreme example of it. But when you're struggling and your head coach is it's not just X's and O's, but the head coach is the face of your franchise and the voice of your franchise. And when that guy sounds like Joe Judge or looks like Adam Gase, you're not just losing games, but you are losing people's faith. So if you're betting, if Mike Tomlin were available, where would he rank on your list of coaches you would want to see take over the Giants?
He'll be up there.
Yeah.
He'll be up there.
Who's above him? Anybody? Who could be reasonable? Are you excited by what's his name? Josh McDaniels?
No. The thing about Josh McDaniels, he turned me off what he did to the Colts. He turned me off. As a person who see him, I don't care if it's a handshake deal or whatever. You had an agreement to be the head coach of that team, and you changed your mind at the last hour. That's not someone I could trust to lead my team for the amount of years I'm looking to lead my team. When I hire a coach, I'm looking for a coach that can lead the team for a good 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The way Josh McDaniel moves, you know what I'm saying? Is he that guy to do that? No, not in my opinion. But first things first. As we get ready to segue to the Jets, the Giants did the right thing by firing Joe Judge after Gettleman was retired, because you're not gonna do the Jets thing and then bring in a GM while you have a head coach already there, and you're gonna create this whole madness. They did the right thing.
Yeah, especially when this isn't even a case where, like, if you remember at the end of the Bobby Valentine Steve Phillips relationship, the Mets, they fired Valentine, and I remember being really bothered. I liked Valentine a lot, but I was okay with like moving on from Valentine, but it made no sense to me that Phillips got to keep his job, because like they were so tied together with everything. That just made me think of, the Giants, and Joe Judge had no business outlasting Dave Gettleman, and Dave Gettleman had no business outlasting Joe Judge. Like, they both I think had to go. I usually feel that I almost never think coaches should be fired. I almost always think like they deserve more time, because there's so many things out of their control. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to Joe Judge to say like, 2 years was enough time to realize that you're no good. Like, I don't know if that's true or if that's fair or whatever, but there are coaches who just don't do well. And then there are coaches who leave behind like an aura of incompetence. Art Howe was like this with the Mets. Like, he was a nice guy, man. He was a nice guy, but his personality, or lack of personality, worked against him as soon as things started to go bad. Like, it was worse, because it looked like, you don't want Art Howe looking like he's the captain of a sinking ship. Like, that's when you want like Lou Piniella cursing at people and throwing shit around. So I think Judge had to go. Not so much for the results on the field, although that was certainly worth an honorable mention in his firing. But you cannot at the end of 2 years be repeatedly talking to the press about how great everything's like you can defend your program, but not sound delusional. And Judge got to a point where like he's talking about all these former Giants who like wish they were still here, and like, we're not a joke, we're not a clown show. Like, you're a terrible team. There's nothing inspiring. There's not like, you can be 4-12 or 4-13 this year and have a player or a coach or a something in place that makes you be like, I can't wait to see where this is in 2 years. The Giants 4-13 is a very sad, like, I can see this shit happening again 2 years from now. And that's weird for the Giants. That's more of a Jets thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure on John Mara to get it right.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many times it can be somebody else.
Before we get ahead onto our Jet team, my pick for GM is Louis Riddick.
How do you feel about Louis Riddick?
I see him on ESPN. He seems like a guy who has a good mind for the game. Him being out of the game for a little bit, not in the GM seat, probably he was able to learn from his mistakes of the past. And he has an idea how to put a team together. The way he speaks, he has an idea how to put a team together and what it will take to bring the Giants back to prominence. Because I mentioned once upon a time, the Giants was always a team that always kept New York football in a sane environment.
Yes.
Now the Giants are at jet-like levels.
This is like if Batman turned into the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
So now Gotham had two Jokers. That's what this has been like.
Mm-hmm.
New York needs someone to be Batman again, please.
Yes. Yes. And now we segue over to the New York Jets. We spoke in the back channel. You were a spectator of the last podcast. And before we get to the Jets, I'm going to mention something about how our Jet fans are really reaching for a lot of things. I've seen people on this group, 1 million Jets fans, fan group, or what the group on Facebook, they're putting up graphics about Bryce Hall versus Darrelle Revis, and Darrelle Revis, the receivers that Darrelle Revis held under 35 yards compared to how many yards Bryce Hall held under 35 yards. And I'm looking at the list. I'm like, wait a minute. Darrelle Revis played against 8 Hall of Famers. Not all pros, Hall of Famers. And you compare them to
Randy Moss in his life.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm going back and forth with this guy. He's trying to, he told me, his argument was, I'm trying to shoot down Bryce Hall. I said, I'm not trying to shoot down Bryce Hall because he's not a comparison to Revis. You're insulting Revis by comparing him to comparing that player to Darrelle Revis.
Yeah.
He's not even on the level of even Aaron. And let me tell you something. I mentioned my last podcast. Top 5 Jet corners in their history. Darrelle Revis, James Hasty, Antonio Cromartie. Mm-hmm.
Where's Aaron Glenn?
4.
Aaron Glenn 4.
Aaron Glenn could be 2 too.
Aaron Glenn was good. Aaron Glenn was good.
2 or 3. Aaron
who's
Glenn.
Who's number 5?
Ooh, oh man. Those are my top 4.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my top 4 all time.
Now, I'm cool with that list, but I think you would agree that that's one of those lists where, like,
Cromartie. Did I mention Cromartie?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of those lists where, like, 1 is at the top, and then 2 is down a little ways. Like, there's some room there. Darrelle Revis is not. You don't just bust out a Darrelle Revis comparison. That's like a Babe Ruth thing. Like, you don't just, if you had, you could hit 40 home runs and have 120 RBIs. Don't mention Babe Ruth.
No.
Like, only one thing can happen, and it's going to be an outcome that you don't want. All you're going to do is make people uncomfortable. This is like somebody acting inappropriately, like in a restaurant, and you're all looking around, and, like, you're going to get kicked out. Like, there's no other outcome. Darrelle Revis is going to get you kicked out. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
This kid basically told me. This guy told me on the comments. Told me to basically jet up. Basically told me to shut the fuck up and not shoot him. I looked at this guy. I'm like, man, I'm not gonna argue with you no more.
Was this guy Julius Randle? Was he telling you to shut the fuck up?
Yeah,
giving you the thumbs down.
Exactly. He said jet up. I'm like, all right. I digress.
There are some people out there.
I tell you. Now we digress. Zach Wilson, last game against Buffalo, gets sacked 8 times. You know what I'm saying? The inability, he didn't have a receiver to throw the ball to. His boys, his main targets, Barrios and Moore, were not playing. His favorite targets. And I have an issue with him being chosen first because he comes from BYU. You know, last great BYU quarterback was 40 years ago, which was Steve Young. I'm sorry, I'm saying 30. I'm exaggerating, but Steve Young was the guy from BYU.
What about Ty Detmer? Are we sleeping on Ty Detmer?
Yes, yeah, we are. I didn't even know he was from BYU.
Mhm.
But keep in mind, Steve Young took Steve Young about 8 seasons to be a decent backup.
Zach Wilson is not convincing you.
Nah, not at all. Not at all.
Now, how much of that is how fair of a shot do you think he's had this year with the amount of pressure? Like how fair do you think it is to assess like his game at this point?
It's not fair to assess his game, but I think it should have been handled differently as far as him being thrown into the fire. You have people comparing. People say that you draft a kid second overall, he deserves to start right away. Okay, that may work in Cincinnati with Joe Burrows. That may work with Justin Herbert in San Diego. This is New York City. When you pick number 2, New York City already has the bright lights. When you pick,
yes,
when you're number 2, those lights get even brighter. And I think having a veteran quarterback to at least guide him through the first 5 games, have him sit and watch first, would have been a bonus to him. And the reason why he played so well, I'd say so well, but he played better than the first half, was because of his injury, because he got a chance to sit back and watch.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the same thing with Sam Darnold. When Sam Darnold was drafted, they had Teddy Bridgewater. You could have bridged him from Bridgewater to him.
Yeah, yeah.
Even McCown was still on the team. You could have bridged him to Darnold. Didn't throw him in there right away.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a team like the Sanchez had, where you had the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yes.
You had Thomas Jones as running back. And you had, on defense, you had Cromartie and Revis locking down receivers to help that defense out. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold didn't have that, and Zach Wilson sure as hell did not have that. Mm-hmm. So, and plus with Sanchez too, you had the benefit of having Braylon Edwards via trade. You already had Kotri already there. You traded for Santonio Holmes. You had some talented receivers. You're gonna sit there and tell me Elijah Moore is any one of those receivers? Yet? Even if he gets there?
Mm.
Santonio Holmes, despite his mouth could be a malcontent, he was all world.
Santonio Holmes was nice.
Mm-hmm.
He was very nice.
So,
yeah.
And the thing is that they brought along the Kyle Shanahan offensive system. What I've studied, when I watched San Francisco, and the reason why they were so good offensively with Garoppolo, Jimmy G, was not because of the receivers, it's because of that tight end. Opens up everything for the receivers. The tight end opened up everything for the running game in George Kittle. Deebo Samuel is not going to be Deebo Samuel without George Kittle.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that system in 2 Super Bowls, blue leads. So this system, in my opinion, is not I'm not saying it's not great, but it's not something that you can just follow it to the T. There could be some alterations to avoid the mistakes of the past.
Mm.
And part of it is utilizing talent, fit your system around the talent instead of having the talent fit your system.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have the disappearance of Denzel Mims. Corey Davis was not the receiver that everyone thought he was for $90 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Braxton Berrios was a special teamer up until this year. Now he got gadget plays all over. He's doing jet sweeps, reverse option throws, and all this stuff. He's blowing up as an all-world player. Now he may even got himself a great contract after this. But those guys don't win you don't win your football games. They don't get you to the playoffs. They don't win you Super Bowls.
So, what are you looking to do if you are running the Jets draft with those first picks?
Those first picks, I have to go cornerback. I have to go cornerback, and I have to go defense. I need another edge rusher.
So both defense
Mm-hmm.
or an edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And in free agency, you got a good chunk of change to work with.
Mm-hmm.
What's the place? Where are you going to spend the most?
I need a center. We as Jets fans have been spoiled from '98 to when Mango retired, which was what, 2016.
That's like 20 years. Yeah.
We had Mawai and Mangold during that period.
That's the Favre and Rodgers of centers.
Yeah. We had
That's
that.
crazy. That's crazy.
And we had the Brickshaw at the left tackle. Another thing I mentioned about coaching, you have Mekhi Becton there. Granted, he's like the Mitchell Robinson of the New York Jets, as far as injury, being available, and all that stuff. However, as big as he is, he's not a zone blocking tackle. He's a tackle that he engages and push. Why can't the coach staff adjust to a potential all-pro left tackle, adjust to what he can do, instead of putting in a system that he's probably not good enough to do?
I wanted to ask you actually about that specifically with the Giants. So if Brian Flores is available and Brian Flores is interested, and like, do you want Brian Flores coming in? As far as Daniel Jones goes, like, there's a lot of talk that the main reason probably that Flores is not still coaching the Dolphins is because Flores and Tua Tagovailoa had a beef about just kind of like an existential football beef, and Flores could not or would not like adjust to this guy. So Daniel Jones is not guaranteed really anything with the Giants, but would you feel like Flores is, I guess, okay, here's my larger question. I was going to ask you, like, do you think Flores is a good fit or not? But that doesn't really, who knows? But I think the larger question is, like, can you see the Giants going in a radically different direction with their coach and their approach right now? Or do you think whoever they pick, it's going to be like a giant kind of person?
I think the giant way is archaic.
Yeah.
It's time to refresh and I put it like this. You gotta what's a nice car, nice old school car.
Old school car.
Muscle engine car. No, let's keep it to a car. You've been driving. What's a good muscle car? You drive a Mustang for all your life. Now you're in a situation where the Mustang, with all its power, is not agile to get you to the traffic jam. You need a car that's more agile, a more sticker engine, good gas consumption. It's a strange metaphor, an analogy, but that's what the Giants are right now. Not only do they need to replace the engine and the transmission, they need to change the whole car.
Do you think that they recognize that? Like if you're betting, are you betting that if let's say there's two candidates who are like above everybody, like there's two guys that the Giants decide they're both a 10 out of 10. One of them is a guy who would be a completely different kind of Giant head coach, and the other one is like very good in the way that Giant coaches are usually very good. Like, and you've got to bet who is this? Who's John Mara right now going to go with? You're a betting man. You're betting on what?
Mm-hmm. He's gonna pull what the Jets pull. He's gonna get himself a consulting firm to help him out with the GM search.
Right? Yeah, he is. I hate that.
He's gonna do that. He's gonna be in Casserly and Rod Wolf again. Good, great guys for talent, but they're archaic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you knock on Bill Polian's door to make that happen? Again, archaic, but I think he's much more in tuned with the NFL than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
But you run to the issue of the Rooney Rule and all the minority stuff and things like that. Listen, we're both minorities, but by the same token, I'm gonna be real with you. When it comes to winning, I'm a mercenary. I want to win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about this guy's skin color. I want to make sure he has a plan on winning. That's all that matters to me.
Do you feel like you have that in Robert Saleh?
No.
Is that because of what you have not seen from him, or because of what you have seen from him?
What I've seen from him is a guy that's really stuck in his ways. He's stuck in what he believes in. And an example, I hate to bring it up because everybody thinks I'm going to take Denzel Mims to the Hall of Fame wide receiver. But the scary part of the situation is with Denzel Mims, before I answer your question, is he goes to Bill Belichick, he'll become an all-pro wide receiver that we see twice a year. And I need to see him coach with a sense of not system, but on feel of his players. The Jets do need improvements. They need that tight end.
Yeah, they do.
They need that tight end. Corey Davis is not the answer at wide receiver. Then you now, even with the first two picks of the draft, Matt, I got to think about going wide receiver. Not just defense. Wide receiver has to be a thought in the process. Because these guys they got here is not the answer. Denzel Mims' mind is gone. He's destroyed. He needs a new environment. That's it. He's done. Elijah Moore, nice player. I mean, can he be a great wide receiver? Yes, but I'm just a proponent of big receivers.
You are, or you're not?
I am.
You are.
I am. I like a Julio Jones type player. I like
Keyshawn back in the day was a big receiver.
Keyshawn.
You know
what I'm saying? Who else was a big receiver that we shoot? What's that guy's name?
Wasn't Brandon Edwards a big receiver?
Brandon was 6'3".
Oh, Plaxico was big.
6'7". Cotry was 6'3".
Okay.
And he played the slot. You're not gonna find Odell Beckham all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's what got everybody was spoiled because of what Beckham did in the NFL. But Beckham is a one of a kind talent, and I don't see that type of talent with Elijah Moore.
Do you think it's more important this offseason that the Jets upgrade the skill positions around Wilson or the offensive line?
Because of his height, the offensive line has to be fixed. However, it can be fixed through free agency. And I'm going to mention this too. We got a whole lot of cap room, $60 billion in cap room.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very big proponent. I mentioned this on previous podcasts in the past about equitable spending.
What is equitable spending?
You got to ensure that the player that you get is going to be that is going to get you that bang for that buck. And I say this because how many teams have overspent all their cap room and still ended up in the same position they were the year before? Granted, you may not have control of that, but you got to have an idea of what that player is going to provide you once you sign him to that contract, and have expectations. You know, that's what I love. That's the thing I love about baseball is, you know, I'm gonna speak to our Mets. What I would have done with Noah Syndergaard before they foolishly let him walk out the door to Anaheim. I would have signed Noah Syndergaard last year, coming off a Tommy John surgery. Gave him his $20 million then, with an opt out after 2 years. Get him. You gotta get the player to sign that contract first, and then always have an opportunity. Always protect yourself. Have a protection system set up where you have that out yourself as an organization. If you get what I'm saying.
What's your stance on Joe Douglas? Do you trust him?
No, I don't trust him at all because he sabotaged Sam Darnold. He didn't give Sam Darnold an opportunity to flourish.
People seem to love Joe Douglas.
No. That was what he did. What he did to Sam Darnold it was criminal. He purposely sabotaged that boy. Gave him no receivers. Gave him no offensive line and tell him, he has to be great. Sam is tough. Sam's doing a great job because you didn't draft him. That's what's the issue. You traded Jamal Adams because you didn't draft him. It had nothing to do with the contract. I'm quite sure Jamal Adams was telling the truth about what was going on in the back shadows that we didn't see. I thoroughly believe Jamal Adams was telling the truth because when Todd Bowles was coach and McCannon was the GM, he wasn't chirping as much as he was chirping about how you don't trust the organization. It wasn't until Gase and Douglas came into the building that he's, I don't trust these guys. And now this year with Marcus May, another McCannon draft, he's going to be going too. And when he injured his Achilles, the defense fell apart. So I don't trust Joe Douglas. I'm quite sure he has a good mind for football, but I don't trust him, and that's the element that you're not gonna get the great free agents for, because there's an element of distrust with the organization, with the man on top.
Yeah. See, that's what I was saying. Saying about it, but you can talk about it with all the teams. How the Knicks, it's not just about improving your wins, but it's about sending a message to the rest of the league that you're to be taken seriously. That's a significant kind of jump, and that kind of shit. I feel like it happens more with the Jets. I feel like with the Giants struggle, I don't know if this is fair or not. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of both teams, and I feel when the Giants struggle, as a Giant fan, my feeling is like, okay, something. Just something needs replacing, maybe the coach, maybe the quarterback, just replace it, and then it'll start running again. It'll be fine. When the Jets struggle, it feels like systemic. It feels like it's part of a thing that is deeply fundamentally flawed, and it cannot work. And I'm having just nightmares about it. It almost does Zach Wilson almost doesn't matter to me for who he is as much as just the fact that I don't want him to be another young quarterback that they just draft and spit out there and get him chewed up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because what I would take, which is never going to happen, but what I would take is in my life as a Jet fan, the best period is not Rex Ryan. I thought Rex Ryan did really well with Eric Mangini's players.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment that, they started to slip away and the moment Rex's team got punched in the mouth, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
They were not bullies. That shit fell apart. To me, the best Jet teams in my life were the Parcells Jet teams.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was so exciting about that time, we were talking earlier about Rich Kotite, the Jets, Bruce Coslet, there was some bad coaching going on. And to bring in Bill Parcells was really similar to what I felt like as a Knicks fan when they brought in Pat Riley. It was the sense that all the shit has come to a stop. Here we go. And it worked out that way. If you remember, the Parcells Jets were a good fucking team, man. And I that's what I want to see from the Jets. The moment Parcells was there, you understood. Even the most cynical Jet fan understood this is different now. And I would love. I have no problem with Saleh. I don't think he's I don't feel like you have to fire Saleh right now. I don't feel that way at all. But I feel like Douglas I've had enough of. Douglas could go. And also I would just love at some point for the Jets to be the team. There's a salary cap. You can't spend more than other teams on players, but you're the New York Jets. You can spend more than other teams on your coach. Go get whoever it is that is the guy who comes in and cleans it up. Go get that person. I don't think they'll do that. It has nothing to do with Saleh. Even that person as a GM, whoever that person is, who right now somewhere walking the earth is the best general manager on the planet who isn't currently employed by one of the teams. You could pay that person. Go pay that person money and bring that person in. Will the Jets do that? Here's the question. This is what I want to ask you that actually relates to the Mets too, because I want to get into the Mets with you. As far as the owners of your teams, you've got Dolan, you've got Johnson, and you've got now Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen, thank you. Who do you trust the most? As a fan, that you're I think my team can win a title and they won't mess it up. And who do you trust the least? That this dude could screw my shit up because he's such a shitty owner.
Hands down, the one I trust is Steve Cohen. Hands down.
That's amazing, right?
Hands down, because you know what it is. He's not the richest owner in baseball for no reason. This guy made his money off hedge funds. This guy's not. He's not there. He's not there to play practice. And if you're not doing what he's supposed to do in his eyes, if you're not making him make money, he's all about winning. If you don't win, he's going to replace you. He ain't got time for you to learn on the job. He wants you already prepared. He wants you to have a plan ready to go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Number two owner is Dolan.
Yeah. Dolan, the head of Woody Johnson.
Woody Johnson's a horrible owner because you should know better.
Ooh. Because
when you had the opportunity to have the Jets have their own identity, you want to go build a stadium on the West Side, knowing that James Dolan owns Manhattan. How stupid was that? Woody Johnson is a pea in a puddle compared to James Dolan in Manhattan. You were never going to build that. You were never going to build that stadium on the West Side Highway over James Dolan body. I'm sorry. That was not going to happen. You should have known. You should have done your research a whole lot better than that. The safe bet was either you build it, either you get in the bed with Charles Wang, who's God rest his soul, with the Islanders. You break down a Coliseum, you create a football and hockey arena where the Coliseum is in Uniondale. Or you build the stadium across the street from Citi Field, where the Shea Stadium used to be. That would have been the smart play and kept the team at Hofstra. But no, you want to go follow the Giants into the MetLife Stadium, which is a horrible stadium. It's not even as good as the old Meadowlands Stadium, from what I've heard. Oof. You know, so you do that. Is the New York Jets, in my opinion, Matt? You probably agree with me. The New York Jets would never go to a Super Bowl as long as they share a stadium with the Giants.
That's a good what will happen first. Like, will the Jets appear in a Super Bowl before they appear in their own stadium? I don't know what their deal is now. Do you know what their lease is, or how long they have to be in the stadium with the Giants?
I don't know exactly the agreement. They're in there for a while, but they do have an opportunity to buy themselves out. But it's a lot of money to buy out.
I mean, you're right. I agree with you that ideally, I think either of your alternatives was much better. I mean, anything, almost literally anything is better than what they ended up with, which is very typical of the Jets as a franchise. But the Hofstra Coliseum thing made so much sense, and Queens always has made sense. Kind of, the Jets played at Shea Stadium, like, really anything other than this. It's like this is so the Jets. This is like you can flip a coin and have any better outcome, and the Jets flip a coin and the coin lands on its side and just stays there. That's the Jets staying at the Meadowlands. Like, what a franchise, man.
And ironically, Matt, when Leon Hess passed away, they sold the team. Guess who was one of the owners that was in the bidding to buy the Jets?
The Dolans, was it not?
Dolans was one. The other one was Nelson Doubleday.
Doubleday.
Wilpon was reluctantly part of it. That's probably why.
Of course he was.
That's probably why the deal did not. That's why they probably didn't win the bid.
We could do a whole Wilpon episode next time you want to. I will talk about them for as long as you want.
I'm ready. We're going to have to schedule that next week or so. Next week. And I forget to mention also Geno Smith. They also ruined Geno Smith too. IK, the knockout.
Impali,
whatever you did.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Geno Smith with a full season with Aaron Decker and Brandon Marshall. I just wanted to see it because Geno Smith went 8-8 in his rookie season with no receivers. Same situation with Sanchez. Same situation with Zach Wilson. The only difference is Geno Smith had DeBrickashaw and Mangold. That was the only difference. He went 8-8 with no receivers. Geno Smith has talent, but I'm gonna say a big but too. Has been the problem with the New York Jets. They created conundrum after conundrum after conundrum. You already drafted your franchise quarterback in Sanchez, right? You brought in Tebow because the owner wanted Tebow and all his prayers and all that stuff. How'd that turn out? Then you bring in Geno Smith, who was drafted in the second round, albeit he was a first round talent. Drafted in the second round, And then Rex Ryan's bonehead. That's probably what in the Rex Ryan's coach career. You throw in Sanchez in a meaningless fourth quarter in a preseason, and he gets hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, my opinion. What's your opinion about how do you think the Jets should improve this off season? What's your thoughts on that?
I think they have a real shot, more than usual, to try to position. Like we talked earlier about wanting, the Knicks to build something for like a number of years, like something, like back in the day, like a sustained excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Jets have a real unique opportunity right now to create that for themselves, because football, more than any other sport, is, I think, a lot of your outcomes are dictated by your division and how you play in it. And New England is not New England anymore. Like, they're still okay, but like it's not obviously what it was when Brady was there. Miami seems to be going like in a good direction, I thought, under Flores. Now I don't know. I don't know about them at coach or quarterback, so I don't know. Buffalo, looks good, obviously, very good. So you have a chance now as the Jets to like really position yourselves, I think, to make the decision early in this draft. I believe the Jets should. I really believe they are in a best position play. What's the expression? Like, not best player available in a sense, but like I would look at their draft board more in terms of like, what are the top areas, and can we get the two best at something rather than best player. So if the best player happens to be a wide receiver, and the next one is a corner, but that like you think corner is the position in the draft where there's the most opportunity for excellence. So you just think by position, like, you know what, bam, like lock down the corners, and then we can work from there. I think that's where you have to look, and I don't feel the Jets have had no success, so I don't know what a Robert-Saleh team is supposed to look like. If this was Parcells, I would know, like, okay, now you're going to build an offensive line. You're going to get a tight end who can catch the ball and block. You're going to have, time of possession. Your receivers are going to block. Like, I know what that's going to be. I don't know at all what a Robert-Saleh team is. And because he has no track record as a coach, like, this seems to happen a lot with, coordinators can really, really widely vary. If you remember Brian Billick was the head coach of the Ravens when they had like the greatest defense of all time, and for years were this just dominant defensive team who just had to be like, mediocre on offense and great on defense. Brian Billick got that job because he was the offensive coordinator of the Vikings when they were setting records for points in a season with Randall Cunningham and Chris Carter and Randy Moss and I think Robert Smith. Like, and Jim Fossil. Jim Fossil came to the Giants as a quarterback guru. The Giant teams under him were very good defensively. They weren't great, like, on offense. A lot of teams, the coordinator, oddly, ironically, the team seems to do better, flipped. So I don't know with Saleh, I don't know how to look at him and know even what his tendencies are, because he has like no record. Like, he didn't coach. Did he coach anywhere before he came to the Jets?
He was a defense coordinator for San Francisco, and then he was under Pete Carroll's staff as a coordinator.
Okay. So maybe he never coached before. Like, I think
no, first time head coach, but he was a coordinator.
Yeah.
And defense coordinator in San Francisco, and he was I think a linebackers coach with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, so I have no idea what to make of him. And this is not a season where I don't feel like now, 17 games later, I have any more of a sense. And I was just looking at this earlier in the evening, actually. Saleh went 4-13, right? 4-13, terrible record, like lousy. But Bill Parcells' first year in the league, he went like 3-12-1.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some calls then for like Bill Parcells to Bill Belichick, like did not have the success in Cleveland.
No.
That would come later in New England. It happens with a lot of people. So I don't know what will work out with Saleh, but I would hope. Part of me feels like if after 17 games you have no idea what someone's identity is, maybe that's a bad sign. But I think ultimately, I still feel like the guy deserves, a year to see if he can give you some sense of like, here's what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I know that yet, and because I feel like I have no idea what he wants to do, I have no idea what I would do like in this draft. But I would I would pick areas that I think, I want to compete with Buffalo for the next 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do really well? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense is great. So I want to actually
Defense
take,
is great too.
but maybe I decide, you know what, the best thing I can do, I'm going to take the 2 best linemen, left
Mm-hmm.
tackle and someone else, because I want a team that can control the clock and keep them off the field. Like, and I'll build from there. Like, okay, cool, go there. I hope the Jets don't get like a tight end and a inside linebacker who maybe they're the best at players at their position, but it doesn't when the Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis, one reason I was really happy, I had no idea how his career would turn out, but
Mm-hmm.
it was such a different kind of pick. It wasn't the kind of thing the Knicks did. It was just culturally different, and like that was exciting because normal Knicks behavior usually didn't turn out to work.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Jets, I would say the same thing. Like, give me a sign that you're going to do something different,
Mm-hmm.
because what you usually do, like, it doesn't work. So, whatever that looks like to you in terms of team building, the Jets, when you get done with the first day of the draft with the Jets, you need to have a sense as a fan of like where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if it's just, and maybe that's not fair for one night, maybe you have to look at the whole draft, but I would be very disappointed if I came out of the night feeling like, okay, like they upgraded 2 spots. I'd feel better feeling like, okay, they took 2 receivers, like, you know what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Or they took a left tackle and the best tight end. Okay, like that's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. But this is Joe Douglas's 4th year with the team. He has a 6-year contract. 4th year with the team, and this is his 3rd draft. Joe Douglas, you are on the clock. And the sad part of it is, I don't think Woody would do it if the team does not improve. If I was owner, Joe Douglas, you're gone.
Yeah.
And in the interest of keeping continuity, Robert Saleh is going to take that axe too.
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst, it may not be his fault, but I can't continue the same cycle of fire the GM and keeping a coach and forcing a new GM to use this particular coach. You can't do that. It makes no sense.
That's insanity. Yeah.
Unless you were a GM, let's say if you're a GM, like I would say, I'm just using any sport. If you're Ozzie Newsome, and if you're known to bring in great players, or if you're even a young Ron Wolf, you're known to bring in good players. If the coach is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, then you fire him, and you're allowed to hire another coach. But a lot of these new GMs haven't brought in the impact players to turn the corner. And it's a sad situation in Jetland. And we got a lot of unreasonable Jet fans with these comparisons and, oh, he's a 5th round pick. He's playing as well as Reeves. Stop it.
Yo, I'm going to stop the insanity. and we're gonna end the night talking about, I think, the team whose owner we both agree we feel the best about of our team's owners, which is saying something because this owner has not had the perfect, 12, 14 months, but he's done a lot of. Let me say this about Steve Cohen and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of reasons why I wish there was no salary cap in any sport. I think it's unfair to the workers, but also as a fan, I think it sucks because baseball is the only sport still where you can have a thing like it happens in soccer, but as far as American sports, baseball is the only sport where an owner can just make a team like kind of incredible pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not I gotta tell you, and like I'm a Met fan, I'm not a Pirates fan, I'm not a Rockies fan. I don't know what it's like to be a fan in that kind of a market.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the most exciting thing. I mean, like the night when Max Scherzer was, are they going to get him? Are they not going to get him? It was so incredible, just like even thinking about that kind of a thing being possible. Like, because you think in basketball, like there's so many moves that aren't even possible because you don't have the cap space, or you don't have the bird rights, or a player like there's all this stuff. But like, and the same thing in hockey, the same thing in football. But for the Mets to go from years of, like you live in a really nice neighborhood, but your house, it looks kind of shitty, and everybody knows your people have money, but you people don't appear to be spending anything because like it just doesn't, it just doesn't look good. And to go from that, years of that, years where like this offseason, Starling Marte is not a move that Wilpon would have made. That would have been too big of a move for Wilpon. Okay. So to go from that to Francisco Lindor, whatever you think of him as far as last season went, just the cultural significance of the Mets trading for a guy like that and giving him a contract more than twice the size of any deal you've ever given anyone before. Like that was just the significance of showing Major League Baseball, look who's back. And now, so that's a real, like, that's a firework. And now this offseason, I would say Scherzer is another like firework. That was this guy's the best. There's no way we can get him unless we just spend outrageous money. Okay, we got him. There you go. There's one. And then I would even say, and this is what I was saying before with the Jets, especially, I wish would happen. The hiring of someone like Buck Showalter. Showalter's not perfect, but this is one of those, like, you can kind of sit back and know that the next couple of years, like, your team's going to be in it. And you're going to enjoy watching the team play because you've seen enough of this guy's teams to know about, his intelligence as a manager. Like, he's legit one of those managers who, like, he's not just there, pushing the button that the GM tells him to do. Like, Buck Showalter is a great in-game manager. I always remember Showalter was the guy. I remember watching this game. He was manager of the Diamondbacks, and they were playing the Giants when Barry Bonds was like outrageous, and the Diamondbacks were up 4-2 in the 9th inning, and the Giants had the bases loaded, and Bonds was up, and Showalter intentionally walked Bonds with the bases loaded to bring in a run to make it 4-3. And then they got the next guy out and they won, and it was this huge deal. It was a ballsy move. Like I've never seen that before. So I'm just saying, you bring in an ace pitcher like that. You bring in a manager like that. You bring it. So now you're having an offseason where like Starling Marte is not a move you would have made in the past. And now that's like your third or fourth best move at a time when the Yankees seem to be like kind of, picking out their pockets and, looking like maybe they're not quite as committed to spending as they have been in the past. I mean, if the Mets become East Coast Dodgers and they're spending $300 million a year and the Yankees are spending $200 million, I'm a big fan in soccer of Manchester City. And that's an example of a team that came up in a market with like the Yankees of English soccer, which is Manchester United. And it was a joke to anybody that like the idea that Manchester City would ever try to compete with United was almost like offensive. And you know what? Now it's 2022 and City is the dominant team in English football, maybe the best team in the world. And Manchester United is in like 8th place, 9th place, some shit, and hasn't won anything in years. So when you have a sport where there's not a salary cap like soccer or like baseball, it's rare, but it can happen. And it's incredibly exciting to think like this owner has shown you, if nothing else, like who knows what it'll happen. But you can't, I feel as a fan, especially coming from the Wilpons, nothing is now, it's like it was when you and I were kids. This is how it was with the Mets. Like Mets, Bobby Bonilla, bam, we're gonna get Bobby Bonilla. Like Mike Piazza, like you're getting him because you're the Mets, and that's been gone for a long time.
Can I? Yeah, but you know why it was gone a long time, because Mr. Doubleday was going to pull his power move in 2001 to bring in A-Rod, and he was vetoed. And Doubleday was like, you know what? Fuck this. You can have this half of the team. I'm out of here. And lo and behold, since the Madoff situation with the Wilpons before, that's going to be another episode we're going to talk about.
Hells yeah.
We both know who had the deep pockets of that Met ownership. The real deep pockets. And it was Mr. Doubleday. He brought it. He was like, he said,
he brought in Piazza.
He kicked out the door. He kicked out the door, said, I want Piazza. I don't care. I'm giving up Preston Wilson.
Yep.
I want Piazza. I don't care if I have Todd Hundley here, my all-star catcher here. Right. I want Piazza.
You got Robin Ventura. You got Mike Hampton. Yeah, that's how it used to be. They used to be in on everybody. When that's the same shit with the Knicks. Like when the Mets stink, whatever. But Pedro comes. Oh, now Carlos Beltran is like, yeah, I'll come. And Carlos Delgado is like, yeah, I'll come. And now Billy Wagner is coming. And now like you get Moise Alou playing 100 games for you, but hitting like 340 because a guy that good wants to play on a winner in New York. That's the one thing, that I would say the Mets and the Knicks and the Yankees, I guess all the teams but the football teams, because like you said, MetLife is just it's a football stadium, but it's not like Yankee Stadium is special, or at least the old one, I would say, like sounded special, and Madison Square Garden, Knicks or Rangers, like sounds special. Coliseum, totally.
The Islanders.
Yep.
And don't forget our dump of old stadium with the bad plumbing. Good old Shea Stadium.
Good old Shea Stadium.
When there was a playoff game in the Shea Stadium, a playoff game, a World Series, that stadium, you saw that shit shaking on the TV.
That was the most beautiful play. We always passed Shea Stadium driving into the city, and that was just the most beautiful place to me. That Shea Stadium blue. Oh man! Anytime I see a highlight now, and it happened to Shea,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get this little kick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I feel excited that I get to feel excited about the Mets because for a long time
Mm-hmm.
it has not been exciting to be a Met fan because the Wilpons, they acted like, I remember them saying once in an interview that when the fan, they would deliver a winner, and when the fans came back, they would have money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And the team got to the World Series, played a bunch of home games, sold them all out. Next season, there were all these pre-sold tickets because the Mets were back,
Mm-hmm.
and they competed all the way, got to that wild card game again, or the playing game with San Francisco. These are all sellouts. Citi Field is a small stadium. Sell out, sell out, sell out, sell out. They didn't spend no money.
No money. Pocket that shit.
Didn't spend nothing. And that was like when the marriage got real ugly. That was like when they didn't even talk, like we don't talk to each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the same house, but like we don't say a word to each other.
And you know another thing too, Matt. They alienated a lot of their core players. They star players from the past. They alienated that was Strawberry. They alienated to a lesser extent Doc Gooden, Wally Backman. I mean Keith and Ron is one of the best trio along with Gary Cohen in baseball. You know what I'm saying?
They treat them very well, but like Keith and Ron get their paycheck from the owner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean there seems to be a lot of, certainly some frayed relationships between the ownership. Certainly I think the older ownership. It'll be interesting to see what Cohen does. I love the news about Hernandez's number being retired. I hope that it's long overdue. Hopefully they'll start to recognize a lot of the guys from that team. Strawberry's overdue, Carter's overdue. I think Doc deserves to be up there.
Yes. It's time to retire 16.
Yeah, and David Wright, I would say. I mean,
Jose Reyes.
You're not going to become the Yankees, but like these people, to me, it's always been weird seeing a Met wear 17. It's very weird seeing any Met wear 18. And you're not talking like a 2 or 3 year run. Like Strawberry and Gooden were 83 and 84, and they're there until I think 90 and 90. I think Gooden was there until like 93. I mean, and just your identity. I mean, other than the 69 Mets, if you take away the 80s Mets, like it's not that much identity with this franchise. Like that is their golden era. Like even if it feels like they should have won more, whatever. I mean, 86 was like 3 championships in one. And it was a great period, and like these people are still, most of them thankfully are still alive. Like honor that when you can and make that connection. You want people to know, like my daughter is 9. She loves Walt Frazier, Walt Frazier, like gets excited. Like he was sick for a while with COVID, and my daughter like calls to me from the other room, like she's like, oh, Clyde's back. Like she has some sense of who Walt Frazier is. You don't want, as the Mets as an organization, to have people to not understand like who Jesse Orosco was, or or that David Cohn was a Met. It was a pretty good one. Or just like how incredible what Strawberry and Gooden did, was. There's so much talk about. I mean, another future episode we can do. The talk about Doc is always about that drugs ruined him. If you look at the innings that they had Dwight Gooden throw and put on that arm when he was 18, 19, 20, 21, it is probably illegal this day in most states. Like they put an unbelievable and that never gets discussed. It's always, well, Dwight got into coke and like, this is a lesson for everyone. Dwight Gooden got. If you're listening to this, go to baseball-reference.com, look up Dwight Gooden. The numbers are outrageous, and it never gets talked about ever.
Didn't he average at least 275 innings?
275, around that. It was pull it up now.
And he had 3,000 strikeouts, right, in one season?
I don't think not 3,000.
Okay.
He got Doc's best, I think, was 286. Maybe he had 301.
Not 2,000. I'm sorry, 300. Like
He might have had 301 one year. I'm checking. No, he had 280. Here we go. He had 286 once. So Doc's okay. Yeah, his first 2 years, he had 276 and 268. Then in '86, he had 200. He only had more than 200 once after that. But so Doc's and remember, these still were players who like also went through the minor league system. So like Dwight Gooden didn't just show up at age 19 like on a Mets field. He threw a ton of innings, Tidewater and other places. But his first year at 19, he throws 218 innings. At 20, the much celebrated 24 and 4 year, the 1.53 ERA, he threw 276 and 2/3 innings. 86, he threw 250 innings. So, I mean, he threw. That's incredible. 88, he threw 248. So, just with what they know now about, if you look at how they treat pitchers now, if Dwight Gooden was around today with his stuff, and teams had the knowledge and the medicine and the conditioning to put his health first. So instead of getting, what we saw from Doc, like 84 to 86, and then he was then that was kind of the end of his peak. What if we didn't get that, but later we got 8 years with Dwight Gooden, at his best? But it just always kills me that the story is always blaming the player and ignoring the fact that you could pull 100 general managers today and none of them would say you can have my best prospect pitch that number of innings when he's 19, 20, and 21 after throwing already however many he threw in the minors.
And the thing is too, despite all of that, all he had to do is get 200 wins. He would have been in the Hall of Fame.
Not going to make the Hall, but he deserves to have 16 retired for the Mets. I think for sure, and deserves. I think he deserves one more. Let's have Doc have a moment.
He needs that.
Yeah, I think it would mean a lot to him. And I think it would mean a lot to the fan. Every time I see Doc, I'm happy. And you don't want to keep waiting every 5 or 10 years to honor the 86 team, because now people are going to start, you don't want to keep waiting. You're going to have fewer and fewer people. Give Doc a day. It's never going to bother the fan base. Retiring Keith's number, giving Doc a day, that's great. I don't know why they wouldn't do more of that.
They wait too long. But the only person, I believe, Matt, that wore 16, I didn't have a problem with was David Cohn, because he was paying homage to his teammate.
Yeah, definitely. That was cool. When he did that, that was very cool.
And he had the respect to call Doc and say, "Listen, can I wear 16?"
Yeah, that was
cool.
Doc
was like, "Hell yeah, you can wear it." You got all people, hell yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I forgot about that. That was very cool.
So, my thing is, we love the Mets. We expect big things from the New York Mets. There's some moves roster-wise that I did not love, I did not like. There's some roster moves I felt it was necessary. I didn't like the fact that we lost Noah. I hated it. But there's still an opportunity that he could come back after this season because he only signed a 1 year with the Angels. And the reason why he left the Mets was because he wasn't sure of the GM situation, which is a blip on Uncle Steve's resume.
Yes.
I felt that situation required an owner stepping in and telling his player, "Listen, I want you to be here. Let's talk about what type of contract we can work out, and so we can keep you." As far as the situation with Steven Matz, another guy that I rooted for when he was pitching for the Mets, fellow Long Island guy like us. You know what I'm saying? He was teased at coming back as well. And then he got to a whole thing with the agents. They blew up on TV or they were unprofessional. Bruh, Steve Cohen, Uncle Steve, a verbal agreement does not mean you have an agreement. You got to get that in paper. He's learning. He's still learning on the job, but he's learning.
He's learning on the job. He's doing okay in some places.
I mean, now you got the manager right. Hopefully, you got the GM right as well. Stop hiring GMs who like to show their dick to girls on text messages. It would be okay. And getting drunk.
That would be a nice change. That would be a
nice change.
I will be. I'll be okay now when Sandy Alderson has had enough and decides that it's time to go.
I think Sandy Alderson cost the Mets a few years of contention.
Yeah.
Because 2015 was not Sandy Alderson's players; it was all Omar's players. Okay, and I love to speak to a fellow Met fan, and you probably agree with me. Omar Minay's tenure as Met GM was probably one of the greatest tenures as GM the Mets ever had, outside of Cashin.
Yeah, because that was the rare case of like when I said before, like wanting the Giants to have someone in charge, or the Jets, like you want someone in charge, like a Parcells level coach. On the GM tip, like Omar Minaya was it for a while. Like at all levels, like you need him to convince a free agent to come. Okay, Minaya can get him. You need to build your farm system. Minaya can build it. Years later, Mets, Alderson included, like would bring Minaya back to like help with shit. Like, yeah, Minaya is a major figure in the Mets history, really.
And I felt, I'm gonna say something too. I'm gonna say something about why he's not the GM of the Mets. In my opinion, it was racial. It was a discrimination against his heritage, his Hispanic heritage, that cost him his job. Because he was starting all that Latin players. But let me tell you something. I'm all about winning. I don't care who he brings in the team. I care about winning. And I believe that if he was the GM of the Mets, if he had the authority instead of Brody Van Wagenen, that mistake, I think he would have had Cespedes in check.
Well, you can't also underestimate how meaningful it was to have a general manager who could talk to basically almost all of his players in their native tongue. Didn't need to go through an intermediary. Just all the and sadly, this past year, which this seems to happen at least once a year, was another reminder. And I think you're right about this with Minaya, that there's a real strong, portion of Met fans from like the racist Long Island community, who, since we were kids, I remember Juan Samuel was the first case I remember of the Mets bringing in. He was Dominican, and he disappointed, but the I couldn't understand as a kid, like Juan Samuel really got booed, like really got it bad. And if you remember, they traded McDowell and Dykstra to get Juan Samuel. So like it wasn't just that he struggled, but like they had traded away two of the fun white guys for Juan Samuel. And I remember my whole life growing up seeing like Juan Samuel. It happened to Mel Rojas. It happened to Armando Benitez. Armando Benitez had some terrible moments in big spots with the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
He was also he's arguably the best reliever in their history. Like that sounds weird, but in non-big spots, he was like pretty. But the level of shit that he got, like a lot of closers pitch worse than Armando Benitez, but the level of shit that he got, Cespedes, the moment, and you could see that coming. The moment he stopped, hitting 350 with a home run every other day, you knew my heart was always tight, like waiting for when are they going to turn on Cespedes, because it is going to be fucking ugly, and it was. And Lindor got a taste of it this year also. There is a large unaddressed portion of the Met fan base that they're racist.
And we forgot one other person who's a victim of that too.
Who's that?
Juris Familia.
Juris Familia.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, Matt, bro, he did not cost us the World Series in 2015. Terry Collins had decided to have the worst managing performance in the World Series.
Terry had a bad series. Familia did not lose the World Series. The Mets would not have been there without Familia, with the year that he had. But again, like it's inescapable in Met history, like where you take a guy like Jason Bay. Jason Bay was one of the worst signings any New York team has ever made. And again, happened because the Wilpons didn't want to go pay a little more for Matt Holliday. So they got the discount version in Jason Bay. Jason Bay ends up being, from day one, god awful. No power, no average. He didn't really, he was just terrible. They did not boo Jason Bay for so long. It was like Cespedes would get booed faster at the start of a season than Jason Bay got the year that he hit 203 with no home runs. Turn like that. Jason Bay didn't get that. Syndergaard, I don't like Syndergaard as much as I think as you do. But when I think of Syndergaard's career, everything, he's made some dumb decisions. He's done things that have cost him injuries, have cost him time. He's made some bad decisions. He has incredible stuff, but it often doesn't translate. If Noah Syndergaard were Puerto Rican and had the exact same personality stuff, off the field issues, exactly the same, most Met fans would be thrilled that he was gone. Or I won't say most Met fans, but a large number of Met fans. If somebody named Carlos Gomez was gone, they'd be cooler with it than if his name is Noah Syndergaard and his nickname is Thor. That's not his fault, but I'm just saying that is a part of Met reality.
And the thing that has been part of Met reality, just the way they handled the firing of Willie Randolph.
They would never have done that to Bobby Valentine, ever.
Nope.
They would never have done that to Terry Collins.
Nope.
They would never have done that to Davey Johnson. There's a lot of people they would not have done that to.
I think but I also do part of it was because he was a Yankee.
You have to have priorities at that point.
Yes. So now we go into the season. We got Scherzer, DeGrom, Cookie, Carrasco, Peterson, and I forgot who the fifth starter is. I think they need to get another. I think they do need to get another starter, in my opinion. If you're not gonna get a starter, then this is what you're going to do. Then this is what I would do if I was the GM of the New York Mets. You resign Familia, move Seth Lugo to the starting rotation the way he wants it, and you go and you hit the ground running with that. Hell, I'll even give Betances another shot.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I would. Because I felt he was hurt. I felt he never recovered from the Achilles from 2 years ago. That's
a tough thing. That's a tough injury.
Yeah. Never thought he recovered from that. I never thought he recovered from that. But you still need a big time left-handed thrower. Let's talk about Mike Miller, the former Oriole. I think he's going to end up being on the Mets anyway because of Buck Showalter. And the thing we forgot to mention about Buck Showalter. Through all his stops, he was the program builder of all those stops that eventually won World Series.
And if you remember, Davey Johnson knew a lot of the Met. One reason he got the job as Met manager is that he knew a lot of the players from the minor league system, and Davey Johnson really oversaw that whole franchise in the early 80s grow into what it became. And like you said, Buck Showalter everywhere. That's what he does. And I think it's so exciting in baseball, especially to have a top manager, and especially nowadays when every team is driven by some analytics person who really the manager is just there to execute what the numbers tell them to do in every situation. Having a manager that can think, and a manager that can understands the heat of the moment and the larger reality of what's happening and times where you are going to have to go against the numbers. Having that coupled with an owner who will spend anything, it has been a really long time since the Mets have been in this position. And I can't wait. Like I was saying before, how when the Jets are 4-13, you're not excited to see where they're going to be 2 years from now. I'm really excited to see where the Mets are going to be 2 years from now.
Hopefully World Series champions.
The man said 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
And now they're going into, here we go, year 2.
In life, you got set goals, and he set a goal, so he's going to achieve it.
He did. Now, he's working toward it.
Now, if we could just move Sandy over to the business side of things and not show his face again, we'd be okay.
Take Sandy out the back alley and send him out that way.
Oh, man. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end this podcast. It's been great chatting up with Matt, my good old friend from the old days of kindergarten to elementary school. All that. So it was great chat with him. He's going to be back on the show. We're going to talk about the Wilpons as well as more on Knicks. He's a Knick expert, in my opinion. Every time we post him on Facebook, I got to see what he says and all that stuff. This is always some good stuff. Some good material that he puts on his posts about the Knicks. He does stay on his podcast and as well. So I hope to be with you guys on his podcast as well, since he did me that solid joining me on this podcast. Anything else? Anything you like to add, Matt?
No, just look for my stuff, Posting and Toasting, and the Strickland, and also Jacobin magazine and Jacobin Sports Show, and Believe Knicks BLEAV podcast. Peace to everyone.
Definitely. She man Big Time about to sign off. Definitely watch this podcast. Listen to the podcast on JoeyG Radio, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn Radio. Also, you can watch it on YouTube as well. It's going to be on Twitch as well. Just search for TruPlayaz podcast on those engines. It's your man Big Dom. Sign off. Peace, people.